Lindsay. She's got to be here for all this. But welcome, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the book study group for Monday, the 6th of December, 2021. I am John Lavenia, and this is brought to you by the paying members of the JL Success Mastermind. Go to jlsuccessmastermind.com, grab yourself a trial membership. You will love it. But one of the things that we do and that we open up to the public is our group, book study group. Tonight, we are on part 3 of Joe Murphy's classic, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. You know, I was looking through his bibliography. Apparently, this guy wrote a lot. And I don't know if it was just summations of lectures. And as you guys notice, as we're going through this book, there's a lot of rehashing or different angles on the same idea over and over again. But I think it's very useful in the way that we've got different things that we're interested in, or that we may have our attention on in our lives in present time. Of course, the chapters that we are reviewing this week, chapters 9, 10, 11, 12, mostly have to do with worldly success, right? As it relates to, yes, making money, getting rich, creating affluence in your life, and using the powers that reside within us to do that. And previous chapters, we talked about healings and, you know, some of the historical events that have occurred with remarkable healings and all this. Well, I've heard that poverty is another disease. In fact, he even said it's a mental illness in this book. I highlighted that part. And when we think about the word disease, right, it's dis-ease, not at ease. Right. So it is our natural birthright to experience life, to prosper, right? He said in the book, we're not here to dress in rags and live in a hovel. I love that. You know, some of that older English that we don't use as much. Well, some of us do. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters 9 through 12. We'll open it up, and then I've got a few highlights that I'd like to highlight for your listening pleasure. But I do see Bob and Missy are here, Catherine, Janet, Scott, and Stuart. I don't know what happened to Lindsay and some of our other regulars. Maybe they're out Christmas shopping or something. Anyway, who would like to get us started? Missy, of course. Please come on down. I'm putting Missy on the spot.
Yeah. The chapter titles. So everything he says, I've had all these stumbling blocks. And I finally figured out now where my strengths in his method lie, because I was trying to use them all in the past. And I've said before, I was trying to force it, but I know what's going to work for me now, what is easier for me now, and what is natural to me. When I first read this, it was new to me 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's working. Things have worked for us already. I'm still waiting for that instant healing, but maybe I'm probably pushing on that a little bit because I'm tired of not being well. So there's probably a lot of hurry up and make me well, but I believe it's coming. I know it's coming, absolutely. And I'm sorry I'm not speaking specifically in the book because there's so much that I've done today. My mind's a little like a washing machine, but if you just study this book and no other book, you will make it in life and apply it. Apply it the way that it's the best for you. You cannot fail. That's about every book you've given us. But
well, thank you. Yeah, this book was suggested to me, I think I mentioned, by Bob Proctor. And when he suggested it, it was at a pretty important time in my life where I was looking to, as it relates to these chapters here, where I was looking to finally succeed in business, right? I had done this and that and had mild success. I mean, I wasn't dressing in rags and living in a hovel, but I certainly wasn't experiencing some of the things that I thought I was capable of. So what does that mean? I need to, think bigger. I need to have a bit more confidence in myself. I think that if we get nothing else but that out of this book, that's a lot. That's a lot. So thank you, Missy, and just your own knowingness, your own feeling of confidence and ability to accomplish that which you want. If the book does nothing else but that, well then fine. Was it worth the $2 on Kindle or
Rather
whatever,
than
right?
an old bookstore.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Missy.
I want to share last night, Misty and I were reviewing, and she hit upon abundance and prosperity.
Mhm.
And there is a difference between the two. And she's abundant. You can have an abundance of good things, and you can have an abundance of not so good things. So just because you have a feeling of abundance doesn't specify that you will have an abundance of good things or desirable things. Prosperity is a completely different concept. It's a completely different word with a completely different set of roots. I see Stuart nodding because he's going to tell us the etymology of prosperity. I know, because I told Missy the etymology, but I want Stuart to validate me. Where do we get prosperity from, Stuart?
Dude, you got me on this one. I want to hear it. I want to hear it, please.
Pro, which is for or increase. Sperity comes from the Latin spes, hope. Sperare, to hope. Prosperity is an increase of hope, and hope is a desirable thing. When one is prosperous, one not only possesses things hoped for, but hopes for even more of those things. A person who has an abundance of things, if they are not desirable things, not hoped for things, yes, he's abundant, but he's not prospering. And I feel a little bit prosperous in that I was able to top Stuart, because week after week, Stuart tops me. I think I'm pretty erudite, but Stuart puts me to shame. So I feel pretty
I
flush.
put you to shame a lot too. So,
Yes.
in
So
other ways.
anyway, that was my light bulb moment in reading all of these things, is that the person who has the mindset, who has trained the subconscious, doesn't think in terms of abundance, but thinks in terms of prosperity. And it's a subtle difference, but I think it's one that really has to be driven home. You want to think thoughts of prosperity and not just of abundance. The subconscious doesn't know between the two, but it will know if you say prosperity.
Okay. Does abundance necessarily, for you, I'm just asking for you, Bob, does it have a different, a negative connotation, or is it by default, is it an abundance of problems or something?
For me, that came from me asking, because I have an abundance of things wrong. I said, what's, I don't remember how I asked you, but I said, you got to watch what you ask for.
Precisely. You have to be very, very careful about the message that you get your subconscious to buy into, and therefore what you are tapping into through the subconscious mind.
I think abundance needs a clarifier before it, but prosperity does not, perhaps.
Well, I'm going to go back to the classic sitcom Gilligan's Island. There was one episode.
I'm Marianne.
One episode where there was a trinket called the Eye of the Idol, and you got 3 wishes for it. Gilligan happened to catch on to the Eye of the Idol. Well, the first thing that he wished for was ice cream. And sure enough, up through the lagoon floated a gallon of ice cream. And to test it, he asked for ice cream again, this time French vanilla ice cream. And sure enough, French vanilla ice cream. Well, the professor, being the man of science, said it's only a coincidence that all these things happened. May have fallen from a cargo ship or from a plane and just floated on board. Well, finally, they persuade Gilligan to use his last wish and get them off the island. And that's exactly what he asks for. I wish we were off this island. And the piece of land that they were standing on broke away from the island into the lagoon. They were off the island.
Wow. There you go.
You know, for a comedy that has more resilience and syndication than it ever did on live TV, there are a lot of life lessons to be learned from Gilligan's Island. So Gilligan's Island, Looney Tunes, very formative parts of my upbringing. Life lessons can be learned from both of them.
Looney Tunes. Yeah. Yeah. I could see that, Bob. I could see the influence that Bugs Bunny had on you. Yeah.
No, I'm more like Elmer Fudd.
Oh, Fudd. Yeah. Elmer Fudd. That's great. Thank you,
Anyway.
Bob.
All right, so now that we've had the comic relief, let's get back to more serious things.
Oh, it's very serious. But here's the thing. One of the things that Joseph says in the book is he talked about forcing, right? So the easy way is best. So if we are in the flow, if we are in a relaxed state with it, then, you know, I know it's funny for the professor to say, I wish we were off this island, right? And then how fortuitous for us TV viewers that, I mean, had they actually been picked up by a boat, that would have been the end of the series. And eventually the series ended. But the idea that the humor, the drama could go on, that's all part of the screenplay, I suppose. In our lives, though, is it so much about, you know, that we have to recite the words? Because I mean, what did Murphy say, right? Just one word, wealth. Just that. And just saying that puts us into a consciousness of that, a wealth consciousness. And then what did he say? And this is one of my favorite lines in the whole book. Avalanches of abundance should come your way. Wow. The first time I read that, I was like, avalanches. Let me think about this here. Here I am, right? I'm looking at mountains and like if like an avalanche of like snow, like that's like heavy duty. Stuart knows about that stuff, right? There's snow and there's gravity and stuff. And like, it just keeps picking up momentum and it could like crush buildings and like wreak all kinds of hell. And I'm like, wow, avalanches of abundance, huh? I had never heard that before. And so I started, I mean, it was pleasing to me. And so I started just considering what would it be like if I was really that carefree? We're talking about a carefree state, being in the flow. And what if I was carefree about everything in life, including money? Because in these chapters, he focuses on, you know, money and prosperity and abundance of money or ability. He doesn't qualify money as, you know, whatever this or that, paper notes and whatever you're using as money. That's a symbol, fine, who cares? But as a recipient, by natural order, a recipient of that abundance, that prosperity, that is all life is moving lifeward, right? So again, we're not here to live in a hovel. So I don't need to like, you know, write my list and check each word before I affirm something like wealth, or the idea, and I don't know how many of you picked up on this, but it's an affirmation that I've shared before, especially with our general sessions in our mastermind group. By day and by night, I'm being prospered in all of my interests. I got that directly from that book. Because what's the real trick with all this is that we're not setting up this argument with ourselves. I think that's the real trick of all this, right? When I see Missy relaxed and at peace and not fighting with herself, and I use Missy as an example, but I could use myself or any one of us, then I know we're on the right track with that which we're telling ourselves about ourselves all day long. That autosuggestion via whatever mechanisms, whether it's an affirmation or just really our innermost expectations about who we are and where we're going in our life. When I've got this argument going on, this cognitive dissonance or this inner conflict where you know, I'm basically full of shit, right? Oh, I am a billionaire. I am a billionaire. No, you're not. Come on. Now I just lost the most important thing that I think I could have, which is integrity to my own self, right? If I don't have my word, well, I got no shot, right? Oh, but just the word wealth or success or by day and by night, I'm being prospered in all of my interests. Hey, fantastic, right? what do you guys think about this? This is huge. These are my favorite chapters in this book. Because again, it directly related to things which I think a lot of us are focused on. Janet, your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying this morning, that
Right.
rather than complicating it too much, if I just think health and I don't define and do whatever, I don't limit. I think when I start defining and going longer, it might be only what my own little mind can think of. And it's not as limitless as just saying health, saying wealth, just these words, and then let my subconscious mind run with it, way beyond what I'm thinking in my limited view. Let it have an unlimited view. And so I think, for me, I think that works better. And absolutely, I have been certainly in the place of, I'm a millionaire, whatever like that, and saying, yeah, right. So I think for me, it is better to not set up that argument, to not be arguing with myself, to not be putting something in there that I can't believe. I think it's way better just to give the impulse, just to give that vision, which will expand. So I think it's much better. Bob, I kind of had this thing with abundance, and I'm thinking, well, I could have an abundance of undesirable things, right? I could have an abundance of I don't know, name it, name your tune, whatever it is, and it might not be the kind of abundance I'm looking for. So I have had, so I like what you've brought up about abundance and prosperity. And I was thinking, avalanche. I was thinking, oh geez, I could just have all this fall on me that I just don't want. So avalanches, but avalanches of abundance, that's different, putting those together, John. I think that's better. But I can just see, I think it's partly in my mind, all in my mind, but if I think abundance, my mental pictures, if I'm imagining abundance in a wonderful way, a wonderful thing, abundance of food, we just went through Thanksgiving, most of us, abundance of food. And I always pray, at dinner pray that everyone has something to eat today, that everyone has a safe place to sleep, because the poor immigrants and all the people, and even in our in our towns, in our neighborhoods, it isn't there for everyone. So I always put that out there. But abundance, to me, my mind thinks good abundance, things I want, not things I don't want. So yeah, thank you. I think keeping it simple is better for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I'm just looking in the chat here while you're talking, and Stuart says a truckload of shit. Scott says shiitake mushrooms. Yeah, okay, great. So that's funny. Scott's a funny guy. Glad you found your way here, Scott. One of the things that he talked about in the text here was this formula. Was it in chapter 10, perhaps, the 3 steps? And something you were just talking about reminded me of that, Janet. Let me see if I could find this. So in chapter 10, no. Oh, I did highlight in chapter 10, poverty is a mental disease. Right. So if we can look at it like that, that's, I think, could give us some clarity. Maybe it was chapter 11. Here we are. The 3 steps to success. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Here we go. So this is in the chapter, Your Subconscious Mind as a Partner in Success. The 3 steps. So subheading, the 3 steps to success. Body. Let us discuss the 3 steps to success. All right, very good. Very good. Thank you. All right, next subheading. First step. All right. The first step to success is to find out the thing you love to do, then do it. And so I was thinking about each of each of us as it relates to this, and how sometimes people attempt to force, there's that word again, force ourselves into a mold, or I should do this, or I should do that, right? In other words, going against our own self-determinism. And there are cultures and societies who think that the group is higher than the individual in terms of some hierarchy of importances, and that all individuals just exist to serve the group or the state or whatever. And therefore you shall be the plumber, and you shall be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, but that's not your thing. And production is shiitake, right? Because it's like, I'm not, whatever. And whatever good or bad job I do, I get the same reward anyway. So this is the first step to success, to find the thing you love to do and then do it. So in other words, loving your work. And I've certainly shared at times, and I know some of you love your work and different aspects of your work. That doesn't mean we don't have problems. We don't have things that we would prefer not to deal with, but hey, you pick your problems, and you did. Fantastic. Okay, infinite intelligence. What if you're vague on what that is? Well, here's your affirmation. Praying for guidance, as he says, infinite intelligence of my subconscious mind reveals to me my true place in life. See that? Reveals to me, present tense. Reveals to me. So we're affirming that that is an action that is occurring, and it will come into focus in right order. The second step is to, I think we got all right, here we are. The second step to success is to specialize in some particular branch of work and know more about it than anyone else. Jack of all trades, master of none. Is that your path? It's some people's path, right? But I think we're in a sort of a specialist economy here, right? I think we've got a lot of people who are, just kind of drifting around here and there, or as we've talked about in other sessions, where they start this and they start that, but they never quite complete anything. So what he's saying here is to go deep rather than just go wide, right? Or just spread yourself really thin, or, blindly cast your nets into the water, right? How about going deep? How about targeting? Not just like in terms of like in my world, right? Targeting an audience, right? Marketing kind of a thing, but also knowing your strengths and developing those to such a degree where you don't have competition. Ralph Emerson talked about prosperity and compensation as it relates to three factors that would correlate with basically what you're worth. And number one is the demand for what you do. So do people want that? Right? Is there wants and needs? Is there a demand for that? Number two is your ability to do it. And that's what he's talking about here, being a specialist, being among the best. Right? And then number three is the difficulty there would be in replacing you. Well, if you got number one or number two, big demand and a high level of competence, you really don't have much competition now, do you? Right? So, wow. All right. So now we're talking about prosperity. Now we're talking about you making your mark in whatever field of endeavor you've chosen. And again, you have chosen it. That's great. The third step is your desire must not be selfish. It must benefit humanity. This comes full circle back to the first thing Emerson was talking about, was the wants, the needs of others, the demand for what you do. Now we can augment that demand, and that's where marketing and all that comes in. Okay. But what he's talking about here is something deeper. And that is by the nature of your work, it is doing the most good for the most people. It's not just a self-centered or selfish kind of a thing. It's also not strictly altruistic. All right. So there is benefit being provided not only to the individual, but also to the group and groups, mankind, the planet, whatever, right? There are greater, spheres of influence which you could assess when making decisions on, all right, what am I passionate about? How can I serve my fellow man with it? There are bigger considerations, right, about beyond just your own household. And so I'm glad he brought that up here, because it's so simple. It's just three things to keep in mind as we go down this road of demonstrating this prosperity in our lives, and doing it without having to have like we were already talking about, do I have to have all the answers? I mean, the whole idea here with this book is that it's subconscious, in other words, not conscious. So it's not just all my thinkingness about it, which makes this all work, right? It's that which I didn't even consciously think about. And it's that omniscience, all knowingness, right, which exists prior to John showing up here and doing this John thing, okay? But prior to that occurring was all the other wisdom of the ages, right? And that could actually benefit me. But I've got to get out of the way. So how could I be in the way of it? Well, let's look at these 3 steps again. Go against the flow. Okay. Don't do what you love to do. Force, right? How's that sound? Does that sound like in the way? Yeah, I'm in the way, right? How about just having a lackluster or a dilettante approach to it? There's another word we don't use often enough. Dilettante, weekender, a hobbyist, right? So am I really getting in the flow then? No. How about being a hoarder, right? Being so self-consumed, so damn desperate all the time, like a rat looking for cheese. Does that sound like I'm in the flow, or am I in the way? Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop sharing my screen. We'll go back to the commentary, which is forthcoming. Who else has some thoughts about these chapters? Come on down. Hey, Stuart, the Llama King.
Hello, John.
Yes, sir. I was
Good to
just
see
thinking
you
about
this
your
evening.
bath bombs. You guys know, some of you don't know because you're not in our official mastermind group. You could be if you want to be. Go to JLSuccessMastermind.com. But Stuart and his wife Leah are the creators of Thrive bath bombs, and they've been now cited in multiple websites as the best bath bombs you can get at any price. So there's that. Now you know. Okay.
Thanks-
Someday I'll
thanks for
take a
that
bath,
plug,
Stuart,
buddy.
and I'll use one of your bath bombs. I don't know when that's going to be, but my wife and daughter love it.
Might be sooner than you think.
You see me in my bath? Come on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I have my AR-15 right by the bath. I'll lean the AR-15 up on the side of the bathtub as I get in with my bath.
We could
bomb.
use the irregulars for target practice. I was out with my son the other day doing a little practice with our AR on our property here. We've got a 12-acre piece of land here in northern New Mexico, surrounded by a whole lot of nothing, and so we're fortunate
Nice.
to just be able to go out on the land and and practice. Couple things, a lot of things. First of all this prosperity consciousness. This morning I woke up to an anonymous donation for $1,000 to our llama rescue operations, and so just gratitude, grateful for the abundance in the universe, and for this mystery angel donor. So super cool. Bob, I too am a fan of Gilligan's Island. Grew up on Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch and things like that. You may not have ever caught this, but I recently saw a special called the Gilligan Manifesto, and it's a whole expose on how Gilligan's Island is essentially I want to say a treatise, but obviously not, but a reflection of capitalism and communism and socialism. And if you didn't catch this, Gilligan and Marianne are the workers, and they're the only ones that are listed by name. Everyone else is listed by their profession, right? So you have the skipper, the professor, the millionaire, and his wife, the movie star, right? They're all their professions, right? Gilligan and Marianne are the working class, and they're the only ones that have names. I mean, obviously they call them by names. But this whole thing about how Thurston always tricks Gilligan into doing the work, into doing the labor, right? And there's this whole thing, like, it's a great documentary. It's called the Gilligan Manifesto. I think it's either on Netflix or on Prime Video. I sent it to you, John, last year, I think. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it's actually worth watching. Very cool. And then avalanches always require a trigger. And whether it's a trigger in nature, meaning a wind, snow load, some sort of natural thing. The avalanches that people die in are triggered by the people that die in them, right? And so whether you're skiing or snowshoeing, I'm avalanche certified in order to be a winter wilderness guide, that kind of thing. But really fascinating stuff. And again, just, metaphors abound in the universe, right? And so when you talk about avalanches, and we were talking in the chat about mental avalanches in relation to what Bob was talking about, but just, that we trigger our own avalanches of abundance and prosperity. So thanks for that little metaphor out of the blue. So now back to the book. He starts out, I'm reading this, right? And it's like, he talks about making ends meet. And I'd never seen that in writing before. And for whatever goofy reason, I'd never thought much about that idiom, right? And I think I probably even thought that the meat in ends meet was like MEAT, like meat, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, ends meet, making ends meet, right? And so I look it up, and of course, the idiom has been around for centuries, and so we just immediately, understand what it's about the balancing of the checkbook or of our finances, of expenses and income and things like that. And at the end of the year, you want your ends to meet and all that kind of stuff. But I looked up the origin, and it goes back to like the 1600s. The first reference I found was a tailoring reference about you take the fabric and you wrap it around yourself until the ends meet, which is pretty interesting. And then there was a component of that where there's charity, right? So then it kind of gets into having a little bit left over to give to charity, which I thought was cool. And then the other reference I found for that was a nautical reference about when the ropes to the sail breaks and you have to splice the ends of the rope together to make the ends meet again in order to be able to sail. So anyway, cool stuff. He says, don't believe that the only way to be wealthy is by sweat and hard labor, right? We have all these judgments against, money and wealth and people that have and things like that. And he talks about that later on, that, we shouldn't condemn or be envious or have negative thoughts about money and things like that. In terms of like our salary, he was talking about like, we need to believe that we're worth the value of our salary, whether it's 75,000, 100,000, 250,000, whatever that is, right? We have to truly believe that we're worth that. Wealth is of the mind. He said we can grow into wealth, prosperity, consciousness by building into our mentality the idea of wealth and abundance. And he keeps talking about like these ideals, right? And especially in the affirmations, which I thought was pretty cool, as opposed to I am a billionaire or I am wealthy, right? It's health, wealth, prosperity, abundance, right? The ideals of these things. Words have power, and that we can cleanse our minds of negative thoughts and the wrong ideas about things. Yeah, that we want to affirm the ideas that then there's no convincing necessary, right? There's no mental conflict when you're just talking about the ideal of something. It's much easier for your subconscious to accept versus trying to convince yourself that you are a millionaire or are wealthy or whatever. Couple cool things I thought about this. The dominant idea is always accepted or impressed in our subconscious, right? So if we don't really believe it, then that's what is impressed. And that's why affirmations may not work, or why, we get the opposite of what we want. Scott's chiming in there. Is that what you think, Scott, man? That's, one of these chapters, he talks about why we get the opposite of what we want. Or in this one, he talks about, why your affirmation may fail, how to avoid mental conflicts. And he talks about like saying things like, by day and by night, I am becoming, or the every day in every way affirmation that John always shares with us from Kuwait or whatever.
Right.
Right. And so, it's about becoming, right? Or it's about understanding there's a process. And I thought that the verbiage of that was kind of cool. Then he gets into blank checks. and that don't write a blank check by affirming lack or negativity. And then he talks about a mortgage. And here's an etymology for you, Bob. Mortgage is a death contract. Okay. So
Yeah.
immediately I'm reading this and I'm like, mort, right? I'm thinking, of course,
Yeah.
is death, right? And gauge is a contract, or the other one I heard was death grip, right? So like, think about that for a second. He talks about compound interest, which reminded me, of course, of James Clear in Atomic Habits, that the subconscious multiplies and magnifies what we deposit, and then we should deposit thoughts of peace and happiness and prosperity and abundance. He talks about, well, and what's interesting is that, this is when we talk about compound interest, again, I think about reaping and sowing, right? And Jim Rohn and all these people talk to us about, I mean, almost every one of these books, Napoleon Hill, everyone talks about this reaping and sowing concept. And of course, it goes back to the Bible, that metaphor. But this concept of, we plant the seed, don't dig up the seed, right? Whatever that is, a washed pot, is it ready? Is it ready? Whatever, right? Don't dig up the seed, right? Plant the seed, let it grow, let it prosper. And even this concept of increase, right? When we plant, when we sow, then there's the principle of increase, where you plant a little tiny seed, but it grows into a big thing, right? At least that's the concept. And of course, then he talks about dwelling upon these concepts or entertaining these concepts, which to me is not only a tip of the hat to Emmett Fox, who I read that Joe Murphy was good friends with Dr. Emmett Fox of the 7-Day Mental Diet, but also the Philippians passage, of course, of dwell upon these things that are good and righteous and all that kind of stuff. The true source of our wealth, right? That we have this insurance policy, right? That it's not dependent upon fluctuations in market or economy or stocks or bonds or, if things crash or whatever it is, right? The true source of our wealth comes from our belief system and the understanding and the knowing that your needs, that abundance is all around you, that, what did he say? That, just everything is coming to you, kind of deal. The real cause of why we can't make ends meet. I love that now. That's like one of my favorite things. We condemn, or people condemn. I'm not going to say we, because we don't do that here on the Success Mastermind, right? But people condemn the thing that they desire or want. We have judgments about wealth and money and how it's acquired, or because of false interpretations of Scripture, right? That money is the root of all evil, right? This or that. But the actual quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And he talks about how money is really a neutral tool, right? And that it's just a thing, and has atoms and molecules, and it's just paper or whatever, or just like gold is a rock from the ground or whatever it is. But this concept of, money is just energy, money is just a tool, and that we should rejoice in others' prosperity, right? And that, to me, that's like, and he says something about that's the way to negate the, the blocks, is to neutralize that by wishing people an even greater success, right? He says the obstacle of wealth is in our own minds, and we should destroy those mental blocks. He talks about the royal road to riches and success. And of course, I looked that up, and there's a host of books that go back hundreds of years that specifically talk about the royal road. I probably found like 6 different books going back to like the 1600s that talk about the royal road to success. So, this is an interesting concept that we can talk about later. He says, students of the laws of mind know that regardless of external conditions or circumstances, you will always be amply supplied. That was the quote that I was making. Mm. And to know that money is forever flowing freely in our lives, right? That there's a surplus. He says we should live a balanced life right? And not only have wealth and prosperity, but that we should be able to have true expression of ourselves, right? And express our talents, our beauty, our joy of contributing to the welfare and success of others. He keeps talking about this, right? And this to me reminds me of Earl Nightingale and the quote about our level of success is in direct proportion to our level of service, right? And this is the number 3 in his 3 steps to success, right? And service to me is a huge part of that. There's no virtue in poverty, right? And again, we have these false interpretations that go back thousands of years, right? To money's bad or this or that. Right? He said, don't criticize money or it will take wings and fly away.
Yeah. I think we heard almost that exact line from Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich. Right. So, I mean, if I was antagonistic towards Stewart or critical of Stewart or neglectful, negative in some way, is Stewart going to get closer to me? Yeah, let me go hang out with John some more. No, screw you, man. I'm heading out. So I mean, think about that. Could we not be responsible for our own attitude? And what is attitude? It's thoughts, feelings, and actions, the culmination of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's our attitude about money. So if it's a scarcity mindset or like Stuart was talking about, being critical or envious of the other person or comparing, which is a sure way to never have peace, right? Well, or the other one, which I think is really a tough trap, is the whole idea, Stuart, that you brought up about, virtue and poverty. Remember that movie, Spider-Man, right? Where Uncle Fred or whoever was talking to Peter Parker. And of course, the villain is a rich guy, right? Of course, the villain's a rich guy. And Uncle Fred or Frank or whatever his name was like, well, we may not be rich, but we're honest. Man, did you have to say that? So what does that mean? Because I'm rich, I'm not honest or something, right? But I'll tell you what, that's an easy sell for the mindless public. Yeah, sell me that movie ticket. I agree. Those nasty evil people. In the meantime, Paramount, Sony Pictures, whatever, they're not dressing in rags and living in a hovel, right? They're selling you movies right now. But it's an easy sell. Tough trap, though, especially if we've been conditioned to somehow believe that we're not even worthy to evaluate our own thoughts. Wow, you unworthy sinner, you. Right?
In Acres of Diamonds, there's a whole segment on, the judgments that people have against people that have, right? And, and he talks about, I know wealthy people and they are, the most generous, the most virtuous people. And, sure, there's people that get things through unscrupulous means, but, Joseph Murphy also tells us about later in the one of these chapters that, when you steal from others, you're stealing from yourself, or when you, when you acquire or obtain wealth or success through unscrupulous means, what did he say? That you attract all manner of loss, right? And it's, you lose respect, you lose your integrity, you lose your reputation, and a few years back, many years ago, I was out on a wilderness trip with a group of people that were discussing whether or not one of their friends deserved to have so much money. And it was an interesting sort of fly on the wall, bless them, exactly, Janet, fly on the wall conversation that then they included me into, like, what do you think about this, llama guy? And I was like, if you got something, you deserve it. And that's, that's the way I see things. And things can be a mixed blessing, right? And so, this person may have, lots of capital resources, but maybe that person doesn't know who their real friends are, because everybody's always, trying to get something from them, or, being phony to them or whatever. And so things are not always what they seem, and everybody has their own relationship with things. So interesting.
Can I
He
touch on
drops
that
this-
real quick, Stuart?
Yeah, man.
We've done work with a variety of like celebrity level people, Shannon, myself, and some of the groups we've worked with. And it's interesting how some of these people have sort of gatekeepers around them, because it's like the never ending. Everybody wants to be in their circle and somehow get something from them. One of the guys I did some work with was kind of shocked when we were just like his peers. It's like I don't know, whatever. Me personally, I don't get like starstruck, or we're just like people doing, and this guy's further down the road than I am, certainly than most people are. But I didn't want to get anything from him. We're here to do some work together, and we're doing a speaking engagement and all that. But the entourage that accompanies some people, like they show up at their house and they're oh yeah, anything you need, and like they kiss their ass just to somehow get something from them. And I'm thinking, really, is that like it? Like your way to succeed in life is to like suckle off of like this individual who has gained fame and fortune? And for some people, that's it. I guess the term would be gold diggers. I guess, I don't know.
Hangers on.
Parasites.
Hangers
Yeah.
on.
Parasites.
Well, yeah, there's another way to call it. Parasite, but it was so obvious to see some of these people that were just like yes men and yes women, right? Whatever they could do to be in that person's circle, like that's their meal ticket. Wow. I thought it was sickening. That's just me. Anyway, back to you.
Back to Bob and Missy.
Back to Bob and Missy. Or whoever.
Yeah, I put my hand up because once again, a happy coincidence, Citizen Kane was shown this morning on the Turner Movies channel. And one of my favorite scenes is when the reporter is talking to Bernstein, who was Kane's business manager. And the reporter says that he went to the Thatcher Library. Thatcher was Kane's guardian. Very rich man, made millions on Wall Street. And the reporter says, well, he made a lot of money. And Bernstein says, quite correctly, it's easy to make a lot of money if all you want to do is make a lot of money. And you can just fill in the blank. It's easy to do blank if all you want to do is blank. If you have that single-mindedness about something, you're going to get it. You're going to pursue it until you have it. Now, I just finished reading another book, which I would recommend to everybody. Burton Folsom, The Myth of the Robber Barons. And Stuart's nodding. Have you read it, Stuart?
No, but I know a fair amount about the robber barons, but I want to hear about this book.
Well, he disabuses the popular notion of the robber barons as men who would walk over their own grandmother for a dime. True, they had to be ruthless in their own way, but those men who were considered to be robber barons felt that they were building something. This goes back to what he was saying, that you use it for the benefit of other people, that your acquisitiveness is not for yourself alone. It has to go beyond yourself. You have to benefit society at large. The men who financed the building of the railroads were doing this. Sure, they wanted to make a buck, but they also saw that everyone was going to benefit by moving grain and cattle from the Midwest to the big population centers in the East, so people would be fed. Lumber would be moved from the Northwest to the East so that homes could be built. There's always the notion that I am benefiting society at large by what I am doing. And Carnegie was, of course, made his money in steel, but after he retired, he financed libraries. He built libraries all over the country. Andrew Mellon, Secretary of the Treasury in the 20s, was widely disparaged because he was lining his own pockets, quote unquote, while he was Secretary of the Treasury. Well, I would recommend another book, The Forgotten Man by Amity Schlaes, Schlaes. And Mellon had acquired one of the largest private collections of art. And as he was being roundly despised by the new dealers, he was acquiring not only art, but he was acquiring property in Washington, D.C. And he financed the building of the National Gallery of Art because he felt that these priceless works of art that he had acquired were not for himself alone. They were to be admired and displayed before the public at large to increase everybody's knowledge and appreciation of the fine arts. So we do have to have this notion of what am I going to do once I have acquired my prosperity? What are my plans for it?
That's your why.
And the way, your why, perfectly put. Because, you know, if you are narrow and selfish about what you're acquiring, if you don't want to give it away, you're only accruing sadness. You're not accruing happiness.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, there's a bigger game afoot, but I think what you just said, as far as what would you do once you have the money, the wealth, or whatever it happens to be, right there is the key to it, because now we're putting ourselves in that person's shoes, that person we're becoming. And is that not an act of faith? I believe it is. That's an act of faith. I mean, why would I be projecting, all right, what's the next chapter look like, if I wasn't confident in this chapter coming to fruition? Beautiful. So I just advanced the videotape a little bit. And so go be that now. Be, do, and have, right? Be that, and you'll do what that person does, and you'll have what that person has. But if I keep bemoaning what I, haven't accomplished yet or whatever, then I get more of that. Stuart, back to you.
Lower my hand here. Talks about obstacles and impediments, right? And that a lot of that is also about, the judgments that we have against people. Some of the statements that he was throwing out there, like I knew him when he had nothing, right? Kind of about keeping people in that box of not having, right? Coming from a place of covetousness or jealousy or whatever. And of course, I think about the Aurelius quote, the impediment to action advances action, the obstacle is the way. He talks about how we can use the subconscious to protect our investments, right? I thought that was cool, how he talked about, and this whole concept of turning it over to our subconscious, right? And I really like that. Like, again, that kind of like the flywheel concept, you use your conscious mind to kind of get the wheels in motion. You go to sleep, you lull yourself to sleep with these ideals or with, visualizations or affirmations or feeling it real. And then you turn it over to your subconscious. Like I give it to you to bring it to fruition, right? And I thought that was pretty cool. Again, the something for nothing thing, to me, I think, everything has a price, right? And that price, can be hard work and dedication and right action and right livelihood, or the price can be on the other side as a cost, right? If you're being unscrupulous in how you do things, lack of integrity, right? Then of course that comes back to you as a cost. As Scott was talking about, he lives to give, right? Or service. We have to give to receive. He talks about the qualities of the deep self. I thought that was really cool. Even just the words deep self, harmony, integrity, security, happiness. And then he does the Matthew quote about the treasures of heaven where moth and rust do not consume, right? And I'd heard the terms moth and rust before in other contexts, and I never really put it together, but the concept of the impermanence or the lack of importance of physical things, right? You can't take it with you. This concept of, moths consume fabric and, fancy clothes and things like that. And rust consumes, precious metals and, the things that people think are important. So I never really, had meditated on that before, but I like that. He said, the man of success is he who possesses great psychological and spiritual understanding. And of course, I immediately think of my friend and mentor, Mr. John Lavenia, right? Great psychological and spiritual understanding, right? And, again, that some of these quotes, man, are just so inspiring to me in terms of, wanting to be a better person or wanting to realize or actualize my own ideals of the kind of person that I want to be, right? Then he talks about Goethe and how he used his imagination wisely and would spend hours holding imaginary conversations, right? And then, of course, I think about our friend Neville Goddard and the congratulatory conversation, right? This is another manifestation technique that imagine, somebody is saying to you, good job, isn't it great that you did that? Or congratulations on your raise, or what a great, I used to go to bed at night before I did a lot of general sessions on the network. And I would have these congratulatory conversations where, John and other people would be like, oh man, what a great session you did, and thank you for that. And it really inspired me or whatever. So, that congratulatory conversation is really a powerful tool. The conscious mind is the dynamo that awakens the power of the subconscious mind. Then he gets into like some hermetic stuff again, the principle of correspondence, right? The outside mirrors the inside. The external action follows the internal action. As above, so below, as within, so without. What we seek seeks us. I've seen this in other places too, but that's a powerful axiom. What we seek seeks us. In the final chapter, which I really just wanted to get at, because there were some cool things in there, and you dropped a couple of references this morning to the fish guy and the benzene guy, right?
Yeah, the fish guy.
But he starts out talking about Edison and Einstein, and as I was reading his biography, Murphy's biography, and you had mentioned in the very beginning of our session this morning that this guy wrote a lot of books. And what he wrote 36 books, and he wrote and published his first book because he was a minister. First, he was a chemist or a pharmacist, and then he became a minister and was ordained in Divine Church of Spirituality or something like that. And that's how he was hanging out with Emmett Fox and some of these other people. But he published his first book in 1945, and he wrote and published one book a year for the next 36 years until he died. Unbelievable. Every year. So talk about, a body of work that spans your lifetime. Just impressive dude. But he talks about Edison and Einstein, and I read that he actually met both of those guys through his connection with Emmett Fox and some of these other people. Because again, Einstein was a bit of a mystic as well, right? And then this is some of my favorite stuff. He talks about Kukli or Stradonitz, who's the guy that had the dream about the Ouroboros, right? And we've talked about, or you've heard me talk about the Ouroboros, which is the archetypical image of the snake eating its own tail, of the cycle of life and death and rebirth, and the male consuming the female, or the female consuming the male, sorry. This is, this goes back thousands of years, this concept of the Ouroboros. And in my talk last week on Norse mythology, we have the Midgard serpent, that's the snake that circles the world and eats its own tail. Well, and so, yeah, this guy dreams about the Ouroboros as this archetypical image, and then envisions the molecular structure for benzene. Just an aside, what's interesting is that, and I think I did a gig on this last year around solstice, but the Ouroboros is related to, so there is actually a constellation that's not Draco, but it's the Ouroboros, it's the snake that circles the world. And there's a constellation that is in between Scorpio and Sagittarius, and it's the lost constellation that got removed. It's the 13th constellation, and it's Ophiuchus. And look this up, it's really fascinating. Ophiuchus is the snake bearer, and he wrestles, it goes back to ancient Greek mythology, and he wrestles the Ouroboros. He wrestles the snake that circles the world, and has been long forgotten, and didn't get included in the 12 signs of the zodiac. And so there's this whole interesting kind of mystical connection with Ophiuchus.
You mean
But
there's supposed to be 13 months? What year is it, man?
Exactly.
Like, my whole
right,
reality is
13,
shot now.
there are 13 months.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the lunar calendar, right? The ancient calendars had 13 months. A month comes from month.
Yeah, I got that. But
Right.
don't we
So
have
that's
12?
13th.
Don't we have 12 moons per year? We actually have 13?
We have 13, yeah. And that's
Really?
yeah.
The whole
That's the
calendar's
ancient-
screwed up.
Being again, I keep referring back to my, my Jewish roots or whatever, but the Hebrew calendar is a 13-month lunar calendar. All all the old world calendars are 13. All the old pagan calendars and old world are.
But weren't we
13.
all supposed to die in 2012
Well-
according to the Aztecs? Like, what are we even doing here? Like,
That's a
what's going
whole
on?
other. That's a whole other thing. But so anyway, I just wanted to give props to Ophiuchus, because guess what? We are actually now, the sun is now in Ophiuchus, even though it's between Sagittarius and Capricorn is what it is, because my birthday was just recently, but we are now, the sun is now in the constellation Ophiuchus. There is no astrological sign, but anyway, props to the serpent bearer and the guy wrestling the snake that surrounds the world and eats itself.
Wow.
Interesting.
Scott, you wanted to have a comment on this? Let's get Scott out here.
Well,
real quick.
yeah, he takes it back to ancient times. And so I live in an area where it's a Dawa, it's a Ojibwe, Native American, very old. I live in Michigan, and the rest of the Native Americans consider where I live being the First Nation. And so I've been able to have the ability, or not the ability, I guess the opportunity, but also the ability to seek out and search such informations, and actually been able to read some things from, and being that there's snow on the ground, I can talk about this. There's a lot of beliefs and a lot of things with the Native Americans, but this one here with the 13 moons, yes, this is a known thing, and the 28 days and the cycle and how the women go. And if you look at the back of a turtle, there's 28 patterns on the back of that turtle. So there's a lot of this old ancient technology, and I will call it tech, because it is, and it's something that we have forgotten and that we don't use. And it's because we've been taken off that plan, I will call it, and we're rediscovering it in a lot of ways. So that's my take on all that. Thank you, Stuart, for bringing that up. I find very few people that know about this knowledge, and I would love to continue the conversation of it.
Awesome. Well, glad you're here, Scott. Welcome to the group. Stuart, closing thoughts. We're over time already.
Fish guy, tell us about Fish guy.
Fish guy. Yeah, I
Fossil
mean,
guy.
yeah, he was digging up bones, and he couldn't figure out, like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then he saw the vision, right, in the dream. And he, at 3 a.m, he's like scribbling it, and he wakes up in the morning and looks at it. He's like, no, that can't be right. Sure enough, it was right. So there's that. So how much do we have to consciously know to be able to produce all this? I think for me, the very basic admonition that he gives us in was it chapter 9? The feeling of wealth produces wealth. Here it is. So simple. The feeling of wealth produces wealth. Keep this in mind at all times. When? At all times. Your subconscious mind is like a bank, a sort of universal financial institution. It magnifies whatever you deposit or impress upon it, whether it is the idea of wealth or poverty. Choose wealth. Well, thanks, Joe. I was a little bit confused on which one to choose. But now that you told me, now I understand. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap up for another thrilling episode. Intimate crowd here tonight. Don't know what happened to Lindsay. It's very weird that Lindsay's not here. She's probably out closing some deals. In fact, I'm pretty sure she is. Yeah. So anyway, love you guys. Thanks for being here. 4 more chapters, 13, 14, 15, 16 next week. And then we will wrap up the week before Christmas with the conclusion of the book. And we may actually take a week off. I know we've never done that before, but we may actually take a week off from the book study group. But we're going to get this one done before Christmas. So anyway, love you guys. 4 more chapters. And I will look forward to seeing you again real soon. Have a great night. Bye for now.